What's up guys, my name is Zero Heroes and welcome back to more Gatesville and welcome back to a more kind of chilled, relaxed, more of a Gatesvilles video. Today we're going to be talking about the new game mode Frontline that has come to the game, come to the content update 4 update, and it's all about tutorial tips and tricks and my top 5 along with that kind of suggestions, ideas of what I would do in this Frontline game mode. Now I have to make it super duper clear that these are my ideas of what I think that will help you in tutorials and tips and tricks. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm saying that these are things that have helped me become a better player. Even though the game mode has just come out and I've only played it a couple times, I still think I've gotten a lot better from just learning and doing these things as I go along from playing it. So please, whatever I say, take it with a pinch of salt. And of course you can play it your own way and you have your own ways of learning from it, but I do still feel like these are my 5 crucial points and units that I feel like are beneficial to this game mode. So kind of just a wee kind of pointer, kind of a wee kind of PS just out there, just saying that please take this with a pinch of salt. And so get your popcorn, get your drink, have a kind of chill, relax, and let's just, without further ado, get straight into it. So the first thing I would like to kind of discuss is about one of the main big things is that it's about manpower, MP, also known as. So what is manpower? Basically, manpower is how much manpower you get from the starting, how many points you get from from the game. And of course, to balance this out, Gatesville has announced that the way it works is that with attackers you get more manpower, but with defenders you get less manpower, so it balances it out and it's not just based on the ability of the player. And that's how they're trying to balance out this game mode, which I kind of still have my not my disagreements, but I think I have, I still think it's very much kind of based on player ability rather than, this manpower less and more type of thing, which I'll maybe get into another topic another day. But it is really crucial that you know how much manpower you have for being the attacker and being the defender. Now, I believe for the attacker, it's like you get 4,400 manpower, and for the attacker, I think it's like not a lot. I think it's like 2,000 or 1,000 manpower. So really be careful. The defender gets less and the attacker gets more, and this is why the Gatesville's done this, because to balance out. So that means the attacker and the defender still has both a chance of winning. But I just feel like this is not true. Anyway, my point being is that when you are starting out with being the attacker, it's important that you, even though you have a lot of manpower and you think, oh, I'm invincible at the start, I have so much manpower, you have to take in consideration that there's also, you can't just chuck out everything that you've got. You have a timer that you have to wait for units to kind of cool down and then bring out. So when I played as the Americans, and I was attacking, I couldn't just spawn out a super Pershing or a Pershing, or I couldn't spawn out multiple Shermans. I couldn't spawn out the best infantry like the 101st Airborne. I couldn't bring out, big howitzers, big guns. So something to really take into consideration is that when you are attacking with manpower, even though you have so much manpower, you can only bring out limited units. And with that comes, it kind of comes like a waste of manpower, I would say, is that you need to really be decisive, really be careful, choose what units you're going to choose with, and I'm going to come to that towards the end of the video about what units you would choose to bring out is when attacking and defending. So stay tuned for the channel, stay tuned for the rest of the video till the end. But in my humble defense, always know how much you got, because this will really kind of dictate the battle. But knowing that the defenders get always less and the attackers always gets more makes it does make it a balanced kind of factor in that sense. But then again, for the attacking, you've really got to be careful, because you can't just spam stuff. And as well as the defenders as well, going for manpower, because you have a lot less manpower than the attackers, you have to especially be a lot more careful about what units you bring out, especially start the battle. So even though the attackers don't have that much to play with, the defenders even have a harder job of choosing what units to bring out, not only because you don't get to choose everything that comes out at once because of this timer limit, but also because you have limited manpower. So you're able to only choose certain units at the start of the battle, and of course you will get more units as you go along, as you defend longer, but you really got to be careful what type of units you bring out. And again, I'll come to that at the end of the video. So key thing for me is manpower. Always make sure you know how much manpower you've got, and this can be adjusted in the settings, you know, before you actually go into the game, before you play the actual game mode itself. But please always make sure you look at manpower, as this will help dictate what units bring out and how you're able to dictate the gameplay through attacking and defending, if that makes sense. The next one for me is time. So it's this really, I know I should really have a top 10, but I thought top 5 because this game mode is still relatively new. So I still need to have a wee bit more time to kind of think about, you know, what is my top 10. But for me, it's a top 5. So time. So the reason I said time is because time, so prepare as strong and as quick as you can from the 3rd and 4th base forward as a defender, and know how much time you have when attacking. Your aim is to capture all points, but knowing it's impossible, kill as much as you can within the time limit as attacker. So let's first talk about the defender. So prepare as strong and as quick as you can from the 3rd or 4th base forward. So as you know, when you are defending, you have multiple capture points that you have to defend against, which Gatesville kind of lied about within their statement, which I don't know why they said that, but they did. I think you have like 8 or 9 capture points you have to defend within a map, and your objective is to try and, well, stop the attacker. But where does the actual line, where do you actually defend from? Because with so many capture points, you're not guaranteed, and I can tell this, you're not, as an defender, you're not guaranteed to defend them all. It's just a known fact. Because there's so many capture points, you are not able to defend them all. So where do you actually, you know, stop the attacker from attacking from a capture point? And that's why I said the 3rd or the 4th base forward. That's where you need to have your best, maybe concentrated defense. Now, usually when you lose a point, you have to fall back, and the further you fall back, the stronger it is. But kind of in Frontline, it's a wee bit opposite. I think you really need to try and focus on the 1st base, and the 2nd base are probably, especially your 1st base, is your weakest. Because even though I kind of said it's the opposite, it's definitely, you're going to lose that point guaranteed. The 1st point, it's just a guarantee thing. Because you have so many points, it's just going to happen. But as you go further back, and the longer it is the defense, it is going to get, your units will get stronger. But in this case, from the 4th base, at maximum the 4th base forward, you should at least stop the attacker fully on that point. You should not let the attacker go any further than the 4th capture point. And at that point, the time should run out, and you should hopefully have hopefully by killing enough units of the attackers, because they just keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming. But knowing the attackers get more and more powerful as they go along, you are going to hopefully get a wee bit more powerful as well. So again, it kind of have this balancing factor, which Gatesville keep mentioning and I keep actually saying as well. So when from that 4th base forward, you should really have a really solid defense onwards, because, and especially the 3rd, because even though I've played against heroic difficulty AI, and I've always stopped the AI roughly about the 3rd base at all times, and that's how good a defense could be. And the 1st base is always meant to kind of just slow them down. It's not an initial stop, it's always just meant to kind of just slow them down so you can get more units for that 3rd or 4th base to kind of to build it up. And I know I said at the very start of this is that you have to you know, from the back it's actually weaker, but I can maybe retract that statement and say the further back you go, it does actually get stronger. So in that case, from the third or fourth base forward, keep that third or fourth base completely strong as much as you can. Do not let the attacker go any further than the fifth base, because of your limited manpower that you have. Unless the attackers, you will fall, you will fail basically as the attacker, because you have less manpower than the attacker. So you want to hold them off at the front point of the bases, and that's why it's crucial to have that third or fourth base completely tight forward as a defense, because your manpower will not last against the overwhelming manpower that the attackers have. So that is my kind of basis on the defender. Now for the attackers, know how much you have time when attacking. Your aim is to capture all the points, but knowing this is impossible, kill as much as you can within the time limit. So this is kind of a way that I figure out is gameplay, is that I knew that I wasn't able to capture all 9 points. It was, as an attacker, it was impossible. I just knew it, and I wouldn't have enough time. I set a time limit of half an hour within the time limit, and I didn't capture even the fifth or sixth base. I managed to capture up to the fourth base maximum within half an hour, and that's with, you know, now having like powerful like Shermans, T-34s, playing as different factions. So yeah, it's really important that when you're attacking, you know how much time you have, because that will kind of dictate how many points you could possibly capture, and also you could actually still win, which I didn't actually know. You can still win on how many units that you kill for the defending. So you can win by killing units more than the defenders can, and that's a way of winning, which is kind of, I thought would never even just be a type of thing within the system, within that type of game mode. But apparently it is. You can win it by killing more units than the defenders. So, and that's where you kind of need to concentrate on, because like I said, you are not going to guarantee to capture all the capture, because there's too many of them to capture within a set of time. Doesn't matter what you set the time to, you can set it to like an hour and a half, and if you're playing for an hour and a half and you still haven't captured all the capture points, then I'm going to start to question you, because that is more of kind of like an ability kind of level, and Gatesfell have clearly stated within their article that it's not meant to be an ability type of thing. It's meant to be a balancing factor with the manpower, which again, I kind of disagree with this, and this is why I'm saying that when you are attacking, make sure you check out how much time you have within it, and then see how much you can capture, what capture point you can go up to, and within that capture point, even just hold that capture point and just try and let the Germans, or let the attackers, let the defenders attack, which is kind of odd because they can actually recapture that capture point, I believe, which will actually give the defenders more manpower to play with. So sometimes the defenders might actually go on the counter attack and try capture a point because they need more manpower, because they have less than the attackers do. So in this case, it's important that you try and kill off the defenders' units, just as many as you can, because that will still guarantee you the win as well. So that is why time is really important for defenders and attackers. Hopefully that makes sense. The third thing is know your doctrine. So before the battle and during the battle, know which is the best doctrine is to take for that faction. All round, defense, counter, lend-lease if you really want to. And what this does, this helps to better know what units you're fighting with, or what units you're going up against, whether it's up against a player or an enemy AI. It's good to know what doctrine play with. All the doctrines for America, I was about to say Britain, but they're not released yet. Russia, Germany, Finland. Play them all. Play all the doctrines, because this will give you a really good idea of how best to play it. Now, it would make sense to play defense or counter for playing as a defender or playing as the attacker, but I generally have actually mixed around with this, and I've actually done an all-round one, and I think I've stupidly done a lend-lease one or a support one for the Americans or for the Russians. And honestly, it's one of the, actually, sometimes it can be better than the defense and counter, you know, if you're playing that. And I know that's really weird to say, because all round kind of does cover the bases of defense and counter. Unless you're going for one of like the DLC ones, then it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really count. But honestly, mix around with your doctrines, you know, play around with different doctrines. This will give you a really good, knowledgeable and good idea of what enemy players and AI, even though AI, you can act, AI I think are random in what doctrine they pick, but if you're going up against a player, they will pick a doctrine, and it's good to know what doctrine they're playing, so you can take advantage of it yourself when playing your doctrine, and this will give you an idea of how to kind of beat them, whether you are an attacker or as a defender. And like I said, I've not played it actually against any players yet in this game mode, but I do know that this can definitely be an advantage on the battlefield and help you dictate or the battle on the battlefield and hopefully the win. Now we're going on to number 4, which talks about defense. And oh, I did not mean to do that. So remember, with defense, and I've said this before at the very start, is that you have less manpower. So you're limited, but you're still very effective. Now, at the very start, I did a 40-minute interview, a 40-minute video on why I think defense is actually better than attackers and all that. And a lot of you, you know, watched it, and I appreciate the video. And a lot of you said that, you know, it's not true. The attackers are better because they have more manpower. I'm sorry, but it's not true. I still think the defense is actually still out on top, only because the attackers have that limited space of how much they can have, of how much command or CP points you can bring out. So yeah, I'm sorry, but remember that. Keep this in mind when defending, as the attackers will get stronger over time, but use up more manpower as they get stronger. So use that. And I know that's thinking like, well, what do you mean? Well, what I mean by that is that when you are defending, is that you automatically have to think that you know that you have less manpower. Doesn't matter in any situation you have less manpower than the attacker, so you're instantly weaker. But in actual fact, you're probably more effective than the attackers, because they have limited amounts of, even though they have more manpower, but they don't have much space to bring out, and they don't have the best units to bring out yet at the start of the battle. So therefore, I would recommend that when you are defending, keep in mind that the attackers, even though they will get stronger over time, but at that start of the battle, that is where they're at their weakest. That is when you have to make the best use of your units. You have to set up certain units, again, which I'll be talking about in a second. But when you are in defense, make sure you have that mindset of at the start that you are technically stronger at the start of the battle. And as you go on, you are, even though your defense does get stronger as you go back, but I still think the defense is possibly still the best way to do it, the best side to be on, because you are actually even though you have the less manpower, you have the same amount of command points, I think, which I'll talk about in a minute. You have actually stronger units to start off with, and that's the difference. That is the difference between defense and attacker in this game mode, is that in the defense, you technically are you have stronger units, because the attacker is limited by not just manpower. Well, they're not limited at all by manpower, but they're limited by the amount of space they can bring out, how much stuff they can bring out, and also the timer, because they don't have everything. They have everything on a countdown, so they don't have the best units yet. So that's why I'm saying is that use the weakness at the start of the battle that the attackers have, because they have limited amount of numbers for units, and then use it, and then just build up your defense in a way that, you know, that stalls them, not completely holds them back, even though that is your objective, but kind of stalls them, slows them down. And that's your objective. Your objective is to slow them down as much as you can until you get a point where your defense is rock solid, that they're not able to punch through. And I'm going to tell you in a minute what units to use as the defense to make sure that your front line within that defense is actually just impossible to go through. So that's what I'm saying, is that that's why I've kind of highlighted that in red, is that you have less manpower. Always remember that. That is your key thing to remember, because if you forget that, then it's pretty much game over, because that's where Gatesfell has specifically made this mode, to make it balanced, because they want this game mode to be balanced by having the defense having less manpower and the attackers having more manpower. So just remember that, and again, keep this in mind when defending, as attackers will get stronger over time. But use it. But even though as the attackers will get stronger over time, they use up more manpower, and the manpower does actually kind of evaporate really quickly for the attackers, and they also run out of things to buy because they don't have enough space, command points to buy the stuff, because they're either reserving them in the back because they're not using them well enough, and they're not kind of suiciding them or whatever it is, and then they just don't have much more to bring out, and the attackers kind of just get clogged up by so much stuff that they just don't have enough space for it. So that's where the defense is really, really strong, because defense can lose units all the time, and you can just kind of keep respawning stuff. Even with your limited amount of manpower, you can kind of have this rolling units, backup that you can bring that the attackers cannot bring in. So I hope that's kind of helped you dictate, or helped you within that battles. That defense is that you need to really be careful. Your key crucial thing for defense is that make sure that you have units that are going to help you specifically for that bit of the battle, or for that bit of the capture point, or whatever you're defending for. So use that. Now for the attackers. Now the attackers have, as I've multiple times said in this video, and I've highlighted already, is that you have more manpower than the attackers. And at the start of the battle, use this to your advantage, but be careful of CP command points, which limits how many units you can bring out. Now, when I've played it, I've had it always a maximum of 175 CP, which isn't actually a lot. When you bring out, because what I bring out for units, I bring out a couple units, 80 guns, mortars, whatever it is, a tank even as well if I wanted to. All that adds up to about 175, or roughly about 168. And 175 max command points, it doesn't actually seem that a lot, especially when you're attacking. I don't quite get where Gatesfell are going with this, where you have so much manpower, but you can't use all of it because of your command points, because you're so limited on how much limited space you're allowed to bring out. And this is why I would recommend for attackers, is that when you are attacking at the start of the battle, specifically for the start of the battle, is that you have to bring out certain units. Again, I'll talk about these certain units in a second, but I would really be careful about how you attack, because at the start, you have to think that the defenders are actually at the start or at their weakest. And I know I just talked about defenders being the strongest, but in actual fact, when you're going through the whole battle, the defenders' weakest point is at the very start, because they don't have, even though they have less manpower than you, and they have less manpower, but they have more CP command points, or I think it's about the same. They don't need to spam out, they don't need to spam out multiple units at once just to get a capture point. They can actually, technically be really technical and bring out certain units. So that means they're not using up their whole command points, and that means they're able to still bring out reinforcements all the time. So when you are the attacker, even though you have the mindset of having, oh, you have more manpower, I'm stronger, be careful, because that is a trick. Because that shows that even though you do have more manpower, you're limited by your command points, you're limited by how much you can bring out, as well as the timer that you have at the start is that you cannot buy out Shermans, you cannot buy out Super Pershings, which I talked about earlier on. You have to really, really be careful. So my tip is that bring out, when you're attacking, knowing that the defenders are at their weakest because at the start of the battle, because they don't have many good units like you, but you have more powerful units, I would say, at the start of the battle compared to when you're actually later on within the battle, because later within the battle the defenders do get a lot better weaponry, and so do you. But I would say that at the start, that is when you need to hit them hard, hit them quick, and that means you're able to capture that first capture point, which allows you to get more manpower, which allows you to get more command points, allows you to get especially more command points, because that is what you need. That is the most crucial thing, is that when you are having the command points, is that it doesn't actually matter that your troops die. I'm sorry, I'm saying this now. It's not like Conquest, where Conquest you need to kind of save your men, and it saves manpower. With attacking, you do not need to care whether your troops die or not, because you have a load of manpower. So whether your troops die or not doesn't really matter. So you could get them, you could do it like Soviet Union style. You could literally just kill themselves by suicide, or Japanese style by suicide, and kill them off, and then just bring in more units because you have that manpower. So you could literally just keep chucking your problems at the capture point, and the defenders will have to eventually just move back because they don't have enough manpower to keep that 1 point safe. So I would say just get the units, get the cheapest units you can get whatever you can at the first one, and just chuck it at a problem. Just chuck your units at that first point, because it doesn't matter if they die, because you have enough manpower, and eventually with that big enough manpower, you're just able to keep bringing out reinforcements. But that is at the very start. Once it gets to the middle point of the battle, that's when you might start to struggle against the defense, because they're now starting to really, really build up their defense and really build up their AT guns, or more powerful units than you, while you're kind of still chucking them. But at the very start, remember, just chuck them at the problem. You need to do it fast and quick. That is what I would recommend for attacking, fast and quick at the very start, and that will get you your first 2 capture points easily. That is what you have to remember. But please be careful. Please take in mind that your CP, your command points, is actually what hinders you. That is what really, really hinders you, and this is kind of why it you're more manpower doesn't actually mean jack shit, if you've used up all your space for your command point. So I would really say it does not matter if you lose men all the time, because, and this is what I'm starting to learn about this game mode, it's nothing like Conquest, where Conquest you do have to really be careful about keeping your men alive and keeping a medic. You don't need a medic. I'm sorry, but you do not need a medic, and that's something I will get to in a second. But yeah, I would say for the attackers, hit them hard, hit them quick in the first 2 points, and then at that point the timer should give you more accessibility to better units for attacking, and that will help you with your attack, and that hopefully will absolutely just slaughter their defense, and hopefully you'll be able to you'll win them by just killing them out fully, because they won't have any more manpower to bring out any more units. So yeah, that is my number 5. So that is my top 5 suggestions that I would say for tutorial tips and tricks for this. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of it, and while you're down there, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. That would really, really help as well. The last thing I'd like to talk about is that what units should you bring out for the attackers and the defenders at the beginning of the battle. And the reason I say the beginning of the battle, and I've mentioned it a few times, is because that is your most crucial and important point of the battle, is that this pretty much that dictates how the battle will go if at the beginning of the battle. And I know for the defenders you are going to lose it anyway, and maybe it's more for the defenders, it dictates maybe in the middle, but for attacking especially, that dictates your win. And for defender, it still actually pretty much dictates how the battle is going to go. So for units, as the attackers, I bring out an AT gun, mortar, ammo crate, tank destroyer, light tanks, an AA gun, and cheap infantry. And the reason I say cheap infantry is because, well, that's the only options you get. And this will help you, and also because they are cheap and, you know, they are replaceable, it's, you know, they're easy to replace because you have loads of manpower anyway. And also a commander. And the commander, what the commander does, if you remember, is that commander actually helps you to capture the point quicker. So it gives you like a +10 on that, whereas just regular infantry like Kruger with them gives you like a +4 in the capture, going into capture point. So get a commander because that will really help. And something I will say right now, and I just said it, do not get a medic. Do not. It is not conquest. You do not need to save manpower. You have so much manpower at the start that you can just, a medic would just is an actual just waste of a unit in this game mode. Do not get the medic because, as I said, because you have so much manpower but very little command points, you're going to chuck them at the problem at the capture point anyway. So it doesn't actually matter if you lose any men or any tanks because you have so much manpower and you can just replace it anyway. So do not get the mistake of getting a medic because you do not need to revive them. You just let them die, and if you do revive them, then it's kind of just a waste of your manpower because you're not able to bring any other stronger units out as you go along the battle. And that's the mistake that I made, is that I just kept killing my men, my cheap men, and as I further went along through the capture points, the defenders got stronger, and it made my cheap infantry, which I could have got a lot more expensive one if I just let them died. And I know that sounds really cruel to say, but it's true because it is really just not worth it. And I'd rather get stronger infantry later on within the battle than cheap infantry, you know, when I'm keep healing them through medics because they're just going to die anyway. And that will just really slow down my attack. So those are what I would recommend for especially the AT guns and mortars. Those will definitely really help you, as you know, because you don't have any access to tanks yet. Unless you play as the Americans, you get the Hellcat, I think, early on, and I think the Chaffee as well. But I would get a Hellcat, but I would get, that's why I said tank destroyers and light tanks, because the tank destroyers are the Hellcat. But I would definitely get the mortars and the AT guns and the ammo crates as well, as this will definitely boost it. Going on to now the defenders at the beginning. Now it's a wee bit different. The only thing I would add is that I would get an AT and an AP minor. These things that I actually got out. I did the test that I did a battle, and these guys really did the work. The AT and the AP miners actually did an amazing job of just laying out mines, and it actually just killed so many infantry, and it especially killed a lot of tanks and AT guns as well. It just absolutely just ripped them through, and it slowed them down on the first capture point so much that I was playing as the Soviets, and I was playing as the Germans, and I was up against the Soviets, and with the Germans I put down a bunch of AP and AP miners and placed them around the first, before the first capture point, and the Soviets just had no answer to them. I just put down so many of the mines down that they didn't even capture the first point. It was probably one of the best games I've ever played. And with that, have some backup AT guns, again mortars, ammo crates, at least 2 or 3 of them at maximum to really slow them down, to really hinder them. And that's why my game of when I was playing against the Soviets, it just slaughtered them with the AT and the mortars and the artillery. The tank destroyers, now this case I would say get medics. It's different. It's completely different from the attackers, get medics, because like I said, you are limited. This time you're limited within manpower, and your command points are limited as well. So you want to try and save the best, you know, let some of them die, you know, let some of your units die, because you are going to need to get better units as you defend or further back. But I would still get a medic to, you know, keep an eye on your mortars in case any of your mortar artillerymen die, or any of your your artillerymen die for your mortars or AT gun, even though they're relatively cheap to buy. But I would not waste that on mortars or replacing them, because it just seems such a waste. But tank destroyers, 100%. Get those flak 88s as well. Those are probably your most, for the Germans, that's your most powerful ones. And for your tank destroyers, get your like your Jagdpanthers, your Jagdpanzer, all the traditional ones that you would get. So yeah, guys, there we go. That is my Frontline tutorial tips and tricks for Frontline, this new Frontline game mode. It is a wee bit, hopefully I didn't actually bore you to this too much, but I just want to say that also this will be the last video of 2024, so I'd just like to do a big shout out to thank all of you for your just amazing support throughout the years. I know we're still a relatively small channel, but I believe we'll still grow, and even if it is at a slow steady rate, that's the way I kind of like it. I kind of like doing this as a hobby. And I did want to make this my full-time job, but you know, I love doing this as a hobby, and I love just doing this in my spare time. It's so much fun. I do love this game. I just want to give a big shout out to the community for Gatesfell, the developers for Gatesfell, Barbara Studios. You've done such an amazing job. You've helped my channel grow massively when it first started, and it still is growing massively well. So appreciate you. Unfortunately, we did get to 3,000 before the end of the year, which is a shame, but you know what, knowing that we're still growing as an amazing channel is still amazing to see. So thank you guys just again for all your support, and this is the last video of 2024, and I thought I'd be kind of just talking about Frontline instead of, because I've already showed you some gameplay and I will show you probably some more, but I'm definitely going to be doing a wee bit more topics on Frontline, just about how I kind of disagree about this ability kind of thing, and it's based on kind of performance, based on balance, on manpower, which I will talk about in a different video. But yeah, I thought this would just kind of be a nice chill video just to do, and I really kind of wanted to do this as well, as when I actually did my review of this, some of you commented about how unclear it was because I was playing and commentating at the same time, and I did get distracted. So hopefully this is now a full rundown kind of tutorial tips and tricks. I'm sorry there's no actual gameplay with it, but I thought this is a much structured, better way of doing it, and hopefully you guys aren't too bored of it. But yeah, this is my way of kind of saying thank you so much for just 2024, for this year's just kind of just been really good for the channel. So thank you so much again for 2024, and I hope you've all had an amazing year, and yeah, and I wish you all the best for 2025, and here is to 2025 for the channel, and hopefully hit 3k within next year. So yeah guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Again, appreciate and love all your support, and I will see you in 2025 for the next video. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later, and goodbye.